Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the physics class. Today we are going to start our third chapter, that is force. So in previous chapter we learned what is motion, and we learned some terms related with motion such as distance, displacement, speed, velocity, acceleration, then retardation. So now my question is, what causes motion? How objects move? So in these pictures you can see all objects are in motion. Then how these objects move? Yes, it is because of force. Force causes motion. The engine is applying a force on the train, and this uh, engine is applying a force on this train. That is why this train is moving. And the person is applying a force on the cart, and that is why this cart is moving. The ball is in motion because a force is applied on this ball. The girl is exerting a force on this luggage bag. So what causes motion? Force. So force causes motion. Then what is force? So based on these pictures, can you say what is force? A person is pulling a cart. Here the person is pushing a car. So in the both cases, they are exerting a force on the object. So we can say force is either a push or a pull. Then what is the unit of force? Yes, we already learned the unit of force is Newton. Then whether this force is a scalar quantity or vector quantity. Yes, force is a vector quantity because it has both magnitude and direction. So here you can see both of them are applying a force in the direction of east. So force has both magnitude and direction. Then what are the effects of force? A force can make an object move. So if we apply a force on an object which is at rest, what happens? It will start to move. So a force can make an object move. Then a force can change the direction of a moving object. So here you can see a person is hitting a ball. So if he hits the ball which is already in motion, then what happens? Its direction changes. So a force can change the direction of a moving object. Then a force can make a moving object stop. So if we apply a force in the opposite direction to this object which is already in motion, then what happens? It will stop. So a force can make a moving object stop. So we can stop a moving object by applying a force in the opposite direction to its motion. Then a force can change the shape, size, volume of a body. So here you can see clay is taken. On applying pressure, on applying a force on this clay, what happens? Its size changes. So we can change the size as well as shape. Sorry, here on applying the force, the shape of this clay changes. So we can change the size, shape or volume of a body by applying a force. So a force can change the shape, size, volume of a body. So which are the effects of force? So due to force, we can make an object move. Then a force can change the direction of a moving object. Then a force can make a moving object stop. A force can change the shape and size, volume of a body. So using this, we can say force is that which changes or tends to change the shape, size, volume, state of rest or state of motion of a body. So what is force? Force is that which changes or tends to change the shape, size, volume or state of rest or state of motion of a body. So you can see this definition is given in your textbook page number 91. So underline these sentences. Okay. So using a force can change the size, shape, volume as well as it can change the state of rest as well as state of motion of a object. Then different types of forces. So which are the different types of forces? First one, muscular force, then magnetic force, electrostatic force, gravitational force and mechanical force, frictional force. So these are the different types of forces. So what is muscular force? Man and other living creatures use muscular force to do work. So what is muscular force? The force applied by a person or a living creature is called muscular force. So in order to lift a heavier objects, we use muscular force. A magnet has the property of attraction and repulsion. This force applied by a magnet is the magnetic force. So what is magnetic force? The force applied by a magnet is called magnetic force. A plastic pen when rubbed on hair can attract small pieces of paper. This is due to electrostatic force. So electrostatic force means it is a force of attraction between charged bodies. So it is also a kind of force. Then objects in the universe have an attractive force between them. This attractive force is the gravitational force. So we know what is gravitational force. So gravitational force is also a kind of force. Then forces in relation to motion is commonly known as mechanical force. So the force in relation to motion is called mechanical force. When an object moves over another object, the force which opposes the relative motion of the object is the frictional force. So frictional force means when an object moves over another object, the force which opposes the relative motion of the object is called frictional force. So we will learn in detail about these frictional forces in the next class. Okay. So the different types of forces are mechanical force, muscular force, frictional force, magnetic force, electrostatic force and gravitational force. Then we can classify the forces into two types, one contact forces and non-contact forces. So what are contact forces? Forces experienced by bodies when they are in physical contact with each other is called contact forces. Then what are non-contact forces? Forces experienced by bodies even if they are not in physical contact with each other. They are known as non-contact force. So examples for contact forces are muscular force and frictional force, while that for non-contact forces are magnetic force, electrostatic force and gravitational force. So here you can see two persons are pushing a box, means the two persons are applying their muscular force on this object. So by touching the box, they are exerting a force. By touching this box, they are exerting muscular force on this box. So this is an example for contact force. So all muscular forces are contact forces. Then frictional force. So here a box is moving on the surface of another object and it is experiencing a kind of frictional force. It is experiencing a kind of frictional force because it is in contact with the surface. So this is also an example for contact force. So all frictional forces are contact forces. Then here you can see a magnet is attracting iron nails. So without touching this iron nails, the magnet can exert magnetic force on the iron nail. So it is a non-contact force. Then electrostatic force. So without touching this paper, this charged comb can exert electrostatic force on these papers. So without touching means without any contact, it can able to exert electrostatic force on these papers. That is why it is a non-contact force. Then gravitational force. So gravitational force also is a kind of non-contact force, because we know that earth attracts all objects towards it, and without any contact it can exert gravitational force on object. So gravitational force is also a kind of non-contact force. So in your textbook one activity is given. In page number 92, some pictures are given. So based on these pictures, one table is also given. So here you have to identify which are non-contact, which are contact forces and which are non-contact force. Pushing a trolley. So pushing a trolley is a contact force or non-contact force? Yes, we know that it is a contact force, because here the person is applying a force on this trolley by touching it. So it is a contact force. So mark a tick here, due to contact between objects. A coconut falling from a coconut tree. So here a coconut is falling from this coconut tree. So we know that this coconut falls because of gravitational force of the earth. So this earth is exerting a gravitational force on this coconut without any contact. So this kind of force is non-contact force. So you have to tick here, okay? So mark a tick on the second box, second column. Then drawing water from a well. So here you can see she is drawing water from the well. So here she is applying a force on this rope by touching it. So this is a kind of contact force. So she is applying a muscular force on this rope for pulling this bucket. So this is a kind of contact force. A ball coming to rest after being rolled on a level ground. So here a ball is rolling, and this ball comes to the state of rest up after moving through some distance. Moving to some distance, this ball comes to the state of rest. So what is the reason? So what is the reason? Because this ball is experiencing a kind of frictional force from this surface. So this is a contact force. So this ball is experiencing a frictional force because of because it is in contact with another surface. So this is contact force. So mark a tick here. Then a magnet attracting a nail. So a magnet can attract a nail without touching this magnet. So this is a non-contact force. So mark tick here. Then a plastic scale rubbed on hair attracts pieces of paper. So this is one example for electrostatic force, and we know that electrostatic force is a non-contact force. So this plastic scale on rubbing on the hair, what happens? It gets a charge. So this charged body can attract another charged body, that is pieces of paper. So without touching this paper, it can exert an electrostatic force on these papers. So this is a kind of non-contact force. So in the next page, a box is given. The force applied by the contact between object is contact force. So what is contact force? The force applied by the contact between objects is called contact force, and the force applied on an object without contact on it is non-contact force. So what is contact force and what is non-contact force is given here. So read it, okay? Then find out more examples for contact force and non-contact force and tabulate them. So you have to find some more examples for this contact force and non-contact force. So what we learned in today's class? So we learned what is force, then we learned what is force, then what is the unit of force? What is the unit? Newton. Newton is the unit of force. Then force is a vector quantity. Then we learned what are the effects of force? So a force is that which changes or tends to change the shape, size, volume, state of rest or state of motion of a body. So a force can change the shape as well as it can change size, volume, or it can change the state of rest or state of motion of the body. Then we saw which are the different types of forces. Which are they? Gravitational force, electrostatic force, magnetic force, muscular force, then mechanical force and frictional force. So these are the different kinds of forces. After that we saw what are contact forces and non-contact force. The forces such as muscular force and frictional force are contact forces. Then magnetic force, electrostatic force and gravitational forces are non-contact forces. After that we saw some examples of examples for contact and non-contact forces.